The following program features the opinions of the host. Listeners are encouraged to seek their own understanding.
The current state of the world should make it abundantly clear that we are in a spiritual battle. The Bible reveals that we are surrounded by an unseen realm. As discussed in previous episodes, this unseen realm is full of unique entities. One class of these entities are demons. There are many preconceived ideas about what demons are, and ancient writings and beliefs have guided some of these conclusions. Do demons possess people or inhabit homes, as movies like The Exorcist or Amityville Horror suggest? What exactly are demons? Welcome to the Ghost in You podcast, a podcast about the weird, the wonderful, and the terrifying in the Bible. I'm Diane Student, your guide and host on this strange journey through the Bible. Episode 11, Demons. There are many mysteries on which the Bible seems fairly opaque. Was there a pre-Adamic world? How old is the Earth? And is it indeed a round globe spinning in the space of a heliocentric universe? Where does God come from? How does time work? The list goes on and on. Another of these subjects that I want to attempt to tackle here are demons. The Bible definitely indicates that demons exist, but it is unclear exactly what they are or where they originate. My goal is not to convince you of anything, but rather give you some morsels to chew on and ease some fears. If you are a Christian, you have tools to combat these creatures, and they are not as powerful as the media and movies and literature would lead us to believe. Let's start with the number one misconception about demons, from my understanding. Demons are not fallen angels. There is no verse in the Bible that claims or describes a demon as being a fallen angel. As a matter of fact, the term fallen angel doesn't even appear anywhere in the Bible. The Greek term that the word demon is derived from is daimon, or daemon, and this translates to supernatural being. There is no inference to an evil entity necessarily, but it may be that daemon is why there is confusion about demons. Using a broad supernatural entity definition, pretty much everything other than human can fall under that. So for the purpose of this episode, I'm using demons to refer to disembodied evil entities that are depicted in the Bible. The Bible teaches that demons can inhabit a human body, and this can even be multiple demons in one body. Most people are familiar with one of the most famous groups of demons in the Bible, Legion. We'll look at this in just a minute. My main point here is that angels don't need to inhabit bodies. They seem to be able to manifest a body when necessary. That's how it's possible that we can entertain angels unawares. So that is another reason I don't believe that rebellious angels are demons. They don't need to crawl into anybody's body. They can make their own or manifest their own, it would seem, according to the Bible. Many early church fathers and the Jewish historian Josephus believed that demons were the spirits of dead men. I don't believe that demons are human spirits. Sometimes people run into a spirit that seems mean and evil, and they think this is something demonic, when it really is probably just the disembodied spirit of someone who was bad and lost as a human. When it comes to what demons are, I think there are a couple of possibilities. I believe that there are things called tulpas, which are entities that start as a thought or an imagining, and with enough energy poured into them, they could possibly manifest. These are not generally good things. And since they are generated or manifested, these are non-physical, so disembodied. I believe that some demons can be tulpas. Perhaps there are preternatural spirits that can be conjured through spells, and this is another source for demons. But again, neither of these are human. These are disembodied spirits being conjured in some other way. The main source for demons for me are the Nephilim. On previous episodes, we've talked about the Watchers who came down on Mount Hermon and made children with human women. Watchers are angels, and so they cannot die. at least not right away. Yahweh has told them that they will die like men when he comes again, but for right now they are banished to a holding cell in Tartarus. Since they cannot die, they can't be disembodied spirits running around as demons do, nor can any other angel regardless of class. Their children, however, could die. The Nephilim were the giants of the Bible, and they went by many names like Anakim, Zuzim, Emim, and Raphaim. They were half angel and half human. For this reason, Christians believe that they have unclean spirits or unredeemable spirits. When the Nephilim died, their spirits went to Sheol, the place of the dead. Isaiah 14, verses 3 to 11 reads, "When the Lord has given you rest from your pain and turmoil, and the hard service with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. How the oppressor has ceased, the insolent fury ceased. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of rulers, that struck the people in wrath with unceasing blows, that ruled the nations in anger with unrelenting persecution. The whole earth is at rest and quiet. They break forth into singing. The cypresses rejoice at you, the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were laid low, no woodcutter comes up against us. Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. All of them will answer and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. The sound of your harps? Maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers." This seems to be some kind of funeral dirge mocking the unsaved dead. In this chapter, Babylon is symbolic of two things, in my opinion. There was the real kingdom of Babylon at the time, and its king, Nebuchadnezzar. And then there's the future Babylon with Satan as its king. This is a spiritual empire in league with a one-world system that is described in the book of Revelation. My main focus in this passage is the term shades in verse 9. Again, that was, Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. Most translations use the word dead. The Hebrew word for shades in verse 9 is Rapha or Raphaim. These indeed would have been the leaders of the earth and kings. They were demigods like Hercules. These were the Nephilim. The Rephaim are known from biblical, Ugaritic, and Phoenician sources. In the Bible, two uses of the term are discernible. The first refers to a people distinguished by their enormous stature, or what we would call giants. Especially singled out were characters like Og, the king of Bashan, and the powerful adversaries of David's men, which we read about in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verses 16 to 20. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel." Basically, we don't want you out there because we don't want you to die. So you got to stay home. After this, there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. Then Zebekai, the Heshetite, struck down Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob, and Elihanan, the son of Jar-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath the Gittite. This is not the Goliath of David and Goliath. He's already dead. The shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was descended from the giants. So that's who all these Rephaim are. And again, the word that is used, the Hebrew word for shades, which are these dead something or anothers that are in Sheol, uses this term. To me, it is being very specific that these dead that are down here in Sheol were the Rephaim, who were the giants. And it's the Bible's emphasis on the size and might of the Rephaim that made it so the Septuagint rendered the term for this as gigantes or titanes. In its second use, Rephaim designates shades or spirits and serves as a poetic synonym for metim. It refers to the inhabitants of the netherworld. This second meaning is also found in Phoenician sources. King Tabnet of Sidon curses any prospective despoiler of his tomb. He says, "May there be no resting place for you with the Rephaim, and may they not be buried in a grave." In the extra-biblical text of Enoch, we get a very clear affirmation that evil spirits, like demons, came from the giants. 1 Enoch, chapter 15, verses 8 to 10 reads, "Now the giants who have been born of spirit and of flesh shall be called upon earth evil spirits, and on earth shall be their habitation. Evil spirits shall proceed from their flesh, because they were created from above. From the holy watchers was their beginning and primary foundation. Evil spirits shall they be upon earth, and the spirits of the wicked shall they be called. The habitation of the spirits of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial spirits, who are born on earth. The spirits of the giants shall be like clouds, which shall oppress, corrupt, fall, contend, and bruise upon earth. They shall cause lamentation. No food shall they eat, and they shall be thirsty. They shall be concealed, and shall not rise up against the sons of men and against women, for they come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction." Now, there are many, probably most, Christians who believe that demons are fallen angels. This is what church tradition has taught. But the Hebrews of the time of Moses would have understood the concept of Nephilim, disembodied spirits, being demons. What the Bible teaches about demons also confirms this belief for me. Demons are able to possess human beings, at least non-believing people. Christians can be oppressed, but not possessed. Always keep that in mind. So you never have to worry about being possessed by a demon if you are a Christian. Darkness cannot dwell with light, and demons cannot have what the Holy Spirit already possesses. As I said before, fallen angels don't need bodies. They can shapeshift as well. They appear as all different kinds of things in the Bible. So they have no need to inhabit a human. A disembodied spirit does have a need to possess a body. Demons are like dried up fruit. They desire water, and that is why they like bodies. Our bodies are full of water, and they are so thirsty. That's what I just read to you in 1 Enoch, chapter 15. No food shall they eat, and they shall be thirsty. They're very, very thirsty. It's like they're out in a desert. They've been banished to a desert. That's kind of what Sheol is like. It's just this desert, this wasteland. And they're looking at humans and going, I want to be back there again. And also keep in mind, they probably want to feel the pleasures of the flesh again, too. It's not just about eating and drinking. There's all different kinds of things you can do once you have a body. And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all tell the story of Legion, with Matthew having 2 men being possessed versus Mark, who only has 1, and Luke, I believe, only has 1 as well. I'm going to share the Mark passage because I think it better describes the capabilities of demons. Mark chapter 5, verses 1 to 13 reads, "They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, 'What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me.' For he was saying to him, 'Come out of the man, you unclean spirit.' And Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' He replied, 'My name is Legion, for we are many.' And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs were feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, 'Send us to the pigs, let us enter them.' So he gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea." Here we have multiple demons in a human, and they gave him superhuman strength. They couldn't keep him bound with shackles or chains. And it's not surprising because he didn't just have a couple of demons in him. There were enough there to go into a herd of pigs that numbered 2,000. So this man probably had 2,000 disembodied spirits in him. And the Bible clearly calls them unclean spirits. What did the Nephilim have? Unclean spirits. And I want to point out, chains could not hold him, but the Watchers are chained in Tartarus. So clearly Yahweh makes the strongest chains. So it is possible to chain up these kinds of characters, just not with our human-made ones. The demons caused this man to self-harm. And the demons are clearly aware of who Jesus is, and they know they are subservient to Yeshua. They need his permission to jump into the pigs. And that man bows down before Christ. So the demons cause him to bow down because they know who this is. In the Matthew version, Legion wants to know why Jesus is messing with them before the appointed time. So we know that demons are aware of prophecy. They know their judgment's coming. They know that Yeshua is coming back and that he's going to judge them. And they know this isn't the time for it. Why are you coming around now? It's not time for you to be beating us up yet. The demon asked to go into the pigs more than likely because their only other option was to be sent back to the abyss. And they didn't want to go back there. So they're like, well, if we got to go somewhere, let's go into the pigs. Pigs were considered unclean in the Jewish traditions. So unclean spirits going into unclean pigs makes sense. I also think there's some great symbology here because how were the first Nephilim killed? In the flood. In Noah's flood, they were drowned. How did these pigs die? They rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. So it's almost like a reflection back into the way that they had become dead in the first place. Demons also seem to be able to cause physical ailments like deafness and muteness. We see this in Mark 9, verses 14 to 29. And when they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them and scribes arguing with them. And let me just say, the scribes who would be arguing with the disciples, these would be your Sadducees, you have your Pharisees. These are people that have drifted away from proper teaching. Let me put it that way. These could be some people that we might consider to be extreme in Christian circles. If we go back in history, let's look at the Puritans. Puritans, Pharisees, same kind of deal. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" And someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him. And when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. So again, we have a demon spirit seeing Jesus and knowing exactly who he is. There's no doubt about it. If nothing else, this to me proves that Jesus was the Christ, because these demons know that. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood, and it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for one who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe, help my unbelief." And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy was like a corpse, so that most of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out?" And he said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." So we have a couple of things going on here. First of all, I like that Jesus is saying, dude, if I can cast this thing out, right there, it showed that the father had some unbelief, and that was part of the problem. If the father truly believed, he would have come up to Jesus and said, "You can cast him out, please do it." But instead he came out and said, "Well, if you can do it, please do it." Jesus is like, "Well, where's your faith? I need to have some faith here in me." And so then the father's like, "I do believe, but please help my unbelief." So he's showing him, "I'm weak in my belief. Please help me with this." Well, he's sure going to help him because he's actually going to do it. And I like that he waited until he saw this whole crowd coming because he wants everybody to see what he's going to do right now. And it's interesting that the disciples were like, "Why couldn't we do this?" And my thinking is when Jesus says that this can't be driven out by anything but prayer, possibly they were sticking to some traditions that they had been taught, and that's probably why they were arguing with the scribes. They probably had a way that they went about exorcising demons, and Jesus is saying, there's no incantations or any whatever you think you can do to get this demon out. The only way to do it is by prayer, and generally this kind of prayer that he's talking about is talking about fasting as well, so that you get as close to God as you possibly can. But also talking about Jewish tradition, a demon causing muteness was thought to be incredibly tough to exorcise because their tradition held that a demon's name had to be known to cast it out. And I'm sure for many of you listening, you probably have heard this belief as well. This tradition is carried on even into our modern era, where you will hear somebody who's trying to exorcise a spirit out of someone asking what its name is, and thinking, well, if I have the name, then I have power over it, and I can control it and tell it what to do. The problem is these evil spirits not only can cause muteness or deafness so they can't hear you, they can't tell you, but they're also a bunch of liars, so why would they tell you their real name? They're probably not going to do that. It's just like when Jesus asked, what's your name? And they're just like, Legion. Well, their name wasn't Legion. They were calling themselves a legion or an army because there were so many of them, but that wasn't their technical name. If a victim's mute, they can't say the name of the demon, so it would be harder to get them out according to their tradition. Jesus proves that a demon can be exorcised without knowing a name. So I believe the scribes were here saying that you needed to know things like that, and Jesus went, well, I just did it without that, so there you go. He was always kind of handing all of their talk and beliefs right back to him. That's why they hated him. And as a matter of fact, Yeshua himself was accused of being demon-possessed. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 24, it says, but when the Pharisees heard it, they said, it is only by Beelzebub, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons. Jesus, of course, questions this illogical conclusion because why would demons drive out demons? A kingdom cannot stand against itself, and it won't. And by the way, Beelzebub was known as the Lord of the Flies and was the patron deity of the Philistine city of Ekron, mentioned in 2 Kings in the Hebrew Bible. A lot of people will say Beelzebub was also Satan, just another name for him. I don't know if that's true or not. It does say that they called him the Prince of Demons, so perhaps that could be Satan would be in charge of some of these demons, or if it was another entity, any of those are possible to me. Team Evil, as I like to call them, has many components. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reads, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. I'm not sure which of these are demons or if they fall into all of those categories, but there clearly are different classes, just as we find with angels. So for Team Evil, there's all different classes. And it's kind of like thinking about the military, there's different ranks. I kind of look at demons as being the foot soldiers. They are the privates, they're on the bottom, they are the least ranked, have the least amount of power. The devil and the evil minions have a very short time left. The end of time will come when, as Romans chapter 11:25 says, lest you be wise in your own sight, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening is come upon Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles is come in, and in this way all Israel will be saved. Because as we know, most Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is their Messiah, and here it seems to be saying that God has put a partial hardening upon them so that they will not realize that he's the Messiah. That way the Gentiles can come into their fullness. Then the Jews will be saved. This here to me is something that will signal the fulfillment of everything. Then Satan and the evil ones will be judged and thrown into the lake of fire when the Gentiles come into their fullness and the Jews realize that Yeshua is their Messiah. That's going to be the end, el finito, for everything. So Satan is not only interested in pulling people away from God, but he doesn't want Gentiles becoming believers because each new believer gets us closer to the fullness of the Gentiles' number. What number that is, only Yahweh knows. Our greatest mission is the Great Commission, to take the good news to the whole world, and Satan's greatest desire is to stop that. One thing I do know about demons, do not fear them. They feed on fear. It gives them energy. And you have no fear of them if you are a Christian and have Christ in you, because you have power over them. And again, they cannot possess you, they can try to oppress you. Where did some of these evil forces, the demons, come from? The ghost in you knows. Thank you for joining me on this episode. May God bless you and keep you. This has been a production of History Goes Bump.